So one thing like you have kind of known before is like the UAPs you have been spotting, and so like about UAPs in general, like a lot of experts have been highlighting the presence of UAPs lately. And like a lot of people who I talk to about like UAPs or UFOs in general, they don't really acknowledge the existence of them because they're like, why don't we see them? Like, why doesn't the average person get to see like UAP phenomena? So, like in general, in your experience, like, how has the experience been like spotting UFOs and like are there any like specific locations or countries or like even at least in the high in the sky where you have to be to see them, or is it just like pure luck or based on chance?
I think it's important to note that I've only seen a handful of well, let's say UAPs. I'm not even sure what they are. It was only happening in the first couple of years of my career. I've only seen four things that I cannot explain.
Yeah.
And I have no clue what they are. And I completely agree that skeptical people are right. I mean, if they're everywhere, why don't we see them? I think it's important to stress out that even for pilots, even credible observers like military pilots, civilian pilots, it's still a pretty rare phenomenon to see anything. And in the last, well, actually, the last time I saw something strange was over 13 years ago. So it's not that I'm seeing stuff every
Yeah.
time. But basically, I'm not even sure if it's UAP. It's just, my search for answers started when I saw the interview with Commander David Fravor. I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he was
Yeah.
talking about his experiences as an F-18 pilot. And it was only then that I realized, I think it was in 2020, it was only then that I realized that he was talking about some of the stuff that I've seen in the beginning of my career and that I never had an explanation for. And basically, that's when I started to dive deeper into the topic, because for a long time I always thought that the stuff that I've seen, even though it was strange, was probably something military. We never know what kind of military hardware is flying around. And the moment I heard military pilots talking about these same experiences, that then I realized that there might be something more to it. To give you an example, twice I've seen a really bright light falling vertically down. Once was at night, once during the day, and I have absolutely no explanation what that could be. Weather phenomena are very interesting. Sometimes you see some strange lightning strikes, but in this case, there was no thunderstorm around. It was just completely clear skies. So basically, I rule out any weather phenomena, especially since I haven't seen anything since in the last 14 years. Um, and these military pilots, they started talking about these objects as well. Once I've seen a really strange light high in the sky. It was moving erratically before shooting off at an incredible speed. And once I've seen a really solid dark object really far ahead of us. Um, Honestly, I don't really. Personally, I don't like the term UFO because that implies that it's an object, that it's something flying. Personally, I like the term UAP more because it describes a phenomena. And I think that fits better with the things I've seen because honestly, I don't know what it is. But my search for answers also comes from the fact that I'm worried about flight safety. When you're flying an airplane, of course, especially in nice weather, we have a really, really good visibility and good view. And as a pilot, we're constantly scanning outside for things that could be a threat to us. For example, at night, when I see a light that I don't expect or any flashing light, I immediately want to identify because it could be another airplane. It could be something that could be a threat to our airplane or flight. So when I see something flickering or if I see something moving, I'm immediately drawn to it because I want to know basically what it is. So the things that I've seen, I was immediately attracted to it because you see something moving and maybe something's from the corner of your eye or something straight inside, and you just want to know what it is. And most of the time, it's easy to identify. I mean, even last night or 2 nights ago, I saw a Starlink passing by, and of course, I
Okay.
immediately saw
Yeah.
it. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful sight, but immediately. And my eyes were drawn to it, but I recognized it because it's quite common. The moon was rising at one point, so we were flying at night over the Atlantic, and all of a sudden you see this bright spot appearing on the horizon, and then you see the moon appearing. So those are all quite mundane things, and other traffic around. Sometimes you see some lights from other airplanes, etc. It's all pretty common. but every now and then we see something that we cannot identify, and that's the reason why I started diving into the topic, because more and more pilots are coming forward with their sightings, and I think there might be a genuine flight safety aspect to it, and
Yeah,
that's my biggest take, because we even saw with these Chinese spy balloons that were shot down over the United States
yeah,
2 months ago. For the first time, it was basically acknowledged that there was really something in the airspace. And for a long time, pilots have been seeing things in the sky, small things, lights or big things. And now we actually have proof that there is something sometimes floating in the sky. So I think this illustrates that when pilots see something, it has to be taken serious, because it could be something like a spy balloon. It could be maybe even a new weather phenomena. I honestly don't care. But I think it's important that we have to keep
yeah,
the topic open without all the stigma around it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like on all, like there's so many podcasts, like even the Lex Friedman podcast, where with I think it was with Andrew Bustamante, they were also talking about UFOs, and like some people are trying to demystify it, but like I haven't seen one yet, but like I'm curious to know, hoping to see something someday.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Oh, by the way,
and like yeah,
sorry, I remember you asked also the question
yeah,
if they're maybe located in specific positions.
yeah,
I think it's also important to note that for a long time UFOs or UAP were the domain of the United States. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
Hollywood fiction. But the four
yeah,
things that I've seen, they were all over Europe.
okay,
Two
yeah,
twice over Greece, once over Spain, and once over Germany. But many
yeah,
of my colleagues, they've seen things over the Atlantic Ocean, over Africa, over South America. So I find it difficult to say if there's a hotspot anywhere, or if it's located somewhere
yeah,
specifically. I think it's
yeah,
honestly a global phenomenon. But since the American culture is dominating nowadays,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the main focus of UAP. And also, of course,
yeah,
the U.S. Navy pilots came forward with the
yeah,
sightings.
yeah,
So it's basically the American pilots coming forward that gave the idea that it's an American phenomenon, but it's definitely worldwide.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at least in my experience, the skepticism starts to come in when, it's like how come only people in the US see it, right? So
Yeah.
like a lot of people, so I think that's where, the skeptics come in and say, okay, like why is it only in the US? But like based on what you're telling me, if it's like it's a very global thing, then for sure it must be acknowledged. So um and so like